Welcome, brothers, to the next episode of our Second to None podcast. I'm Matthew Botter, Worthy Grand Scribe, 1995 initiator of the Kappa chapter at Boise State University. Today's episode is about Kappa Sigma across generations, talking about legacies. Kappa Sigma is part of our family, brothers who have sons and fathers who are members of the fraternity, and how that's shared between generations. We have three outstanding brothers with us today who are all volunteers for the fraternity, like myself, and who are all legacies or fathers of legacies, and who have great stories to tell about the richness of Kappa Sigma and sharing the gift of brotherhood across our families. So I'd ask each of you to just quickly introduce yourselves, what role you've played in the fraternity, what chapter you're from, and then we'll get into it.
All right, so I'm William Lynch. I'm a 2008 initiate of the Pi Eta chapter at Missouri Southern State University. I've served in a number of different roles throughout my time as an alumnus, and I currently serve as legal commissioner. It's a position that I've held since 2019.
Great. Thanks, brother.
I'm Lonnie Houssaye. I'm an 83 initiate at Theta Rho at McNeese State University, presently a veterinarian, and serve as your Worthy Grand Treasurer.
Great. Thanks, Lonnie.
My name is Michael Griffiths. I'm a 1987 initiate of the Theta Rho chapter at McNeese State University. I've served for about 10 years. I've gone all the way from AA. I currently serve as DGM and as Technology Commissioner.
Great. Thank you, brothers. Thank you for being here. And by the way, we're at the Winter SEC meeting in Dallas, Texas. Here taking a few minutes to talk about this important topic. And I want to start us off with a quick story. When I first joined the Kappa Sigma staff after I graduated, I was in charge of expansions, and Mick Wilson, our executive director emeritus, said, "Brother Bott, you're heading down to recolonize the historic Gamma chapter at LSU." And I'd never been to Louisiana, and it was an awesome experience. And got a chance to meet with lots of potential brothers. And as we were wrapping up the expansion effort, we were in like week 3, and it was the day before we were going to pledge everybody in, and word got out that we were about to kind of end the effort and start the colony. And we had a line out the door of guys who were fighting to join because they wanted to be a part of being a founding father of such a historic chapter. And I tell you that most of them would come in and they would interview, and they would say, this is a part of my family. My dad was a Kappa Sig, or is a Kappa Sig. My grandfather, before he passed, it was a Kappa Sig. My uncle, my older brother, my cousin. And I got to see in Louisiana and really across the U.S. how important the bonds of brotherhood across generations are, and the value of legacy. And we all share that, all 4 of us, and hundreds and thousands of others across our fraternity. So for me, it was very eye-opening how much it means to folks, starting from kind of that experience at Gamma and rechartering that chapter. So let me ask each of you, give 2 or 3 minutes of your background and your son's background or your family's background with the fraternity and what it means to you. Brother Lynch?
Absolutely. So I'm a first-generation Kappa Sigma. We founded our charter at Missouri Southern in 2008. When I had sons, it was something that immediately came to mind for me because of my involvement in the fraternity, that maybe someday he'll be a Kappa Sigma. Nice. But it was a decision for Braden, my oldest, that he came to on his own. I encouraged him to try it out. I encouraged him to go to a rush event over summer with Beta Gamma at Mizzou. But outside of that initial push, it was really something that was entirely his own journey, and that's something that's important to me as well. I didn't want him to feel overwhelmed or something that he had to do, because he was a little bit reluctant, because the role that I play in the fraternity isn't the most glamorous, and it's not something that I think a normal 18-year-old is going to seek out, like, I want to do what he does for the fraternity. So, outside of that push, it was kind of his journey. He was on his own, and I believe firmly that Kappa Sigma builds better men. That's why I remain involved in the fraternity, and that's also why I wanted my son to rush. And the truth is, I think that he saw that on his own. He didn't join Kappa Sigma because of me. He joined Kappa Sigma because what Kappa Sigma stands for, and I couldn't be more proud of that.
That's awesome. And he was initiated when?
He was initiated just this last semester at Beta Gamma, and I was lucky enough to be able to participate in that initiation.
Nice.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Special day for you guys.
Yes, very special.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Brother Houssaye?
Well, I've got to tell you, I first heard about Kappa Sigma when I was in elementary school. I mean, it was that big in my family. My dad and my uncle were both initiates at Gamma at LSU. My mother was actually a Kappa Sigma sweetheart at LSU. My younger cousin is an initiate with Sigma in Tulane. My son was an initiate at Omicron Chi in Nichols. And hopefully I'll be around long enough to see my grandson make it. So it's a very big deal in my family. It really is. I can't speak enough about it. And the fact that as long as I can remember, I heard about Kappa Sigma from my dad. And it's probably one of the best things I ever did in my life, second to getting married and having a family. But Kappa Sigma is my family. And it's the legacy is about as important as it can get with us.
That's great. Thank you, brother.
Similar story with Alani. I had an uncle, and our fraternity was a different fraternity, but the year that we became Kappa Sigma was the last year that my uncle was in it, so he came through there, so I was familiar with that. But I joined Kappa Sigma, and similar, I met my wife, she was a sweetheart, and then we have 2 sons who both became Kappa Sigmas. They both served as officers and currently serve as volunteers, so that was a part of it's a part of our lives. So like everything that we do runs through it. And we would always, kind of joke during the years. It wasn't until they became initiated and read through the values of the Star and Crescent that that's the values that they were raised on. They were raised on these values that we cherish. So the initiation was just like an understanding of everything that life had brought forth, and that brings it into it. And another thing that I found that I really cherish about Legacies was during my time, a lot of my pledge brothers that went through, when my sons joined, we had 5 Legacies that came through that year.
Wow.
And then the following year, I think it increased to 7. And the one thing that I learned through that process is the way that we've all raised them, and they were all of their lives, Kappa Sigma's been a part of them growing up. They were eager to become part of the chapter. And when they finally did, it was an incredible turning point in our chapter toward the progress that it made. And it's just been great ever since.
Awesome.
And every one of those legacies also has typically moved on to become volunteers in some fashion as well.
That's great. That's great. And my story is very similar. My my family's known about my involvement with the fraternity and what it's given for me, starting from when I pledged and all it did for me as an undergraduate and then as an alumnus, and then working the headquarters and now as a volunteer on the SEC. And so when it came time for my first son, I have 2 sons, both of whom I hope, one is a Kappa Sigma and one hopefully will be soon. When it came time for my oldest son, Hudson, to go to school, we looked at campuses who fit what he wanted and also filtered by who had a great Kappa Sigma chapter, to be honest. And, he found that, we found that at the Omicron Phi chapter at Washington College in Chestertown, Maryland, which is a great chapter, and shout out to those guys. But like Brother Lynch said, I didn't want to push it hard. I wanted him to make his own decision and see if this was something he wanted for himself, with a little encouragement. He wasn't allowed to join any other fraternity, I'll tell you that much. But no, he met the guys, and it worked out. And he's had a great time with it since. He was initiated about a little under a year ago. I also got to participate in his initiation. So it was a special day for him, for me, and for our family. And we have another son that's in high school, and we hope he follows the same pathway. So very special. And thank you for each sharing your story about your history with the fraternity within your family. Let me kind of just to go to our next kind of component of this. What would you say that your sons are getting from the fraternity? What do you hope when they graduate, when they look back on their 4 years, what do you think they're going to take from it?
Well, for me, Kappa Sigma obviously has played a very big role in forming the man that I am, and it means so much to me to know that my son is going down that same path, and I really hope that it has the same impact in his life that it has had on mine. But I don't want him to have the same journey as me, necessarily. I want him to write his own story and make his own way and make his own mark on Kappa Sigma. And so, to me, it's really up to him. I really want to make sure that he leaves an impact, but it doesn't necessarily have to be what my experience was. We all come from different chapters, and I think that different chapters sometimes have a different culture. My son didn't join the same chapter of Kappa Sigma that I was initiated into, but the values that we hold dear and the ritual that binds us together, that's the same across all of North America. And so him sharing those values and having that experience, I think is going to pay dividends in whatever his path is for Kappa Sigma.
Nice. So kind of giving him a platform to go where he wants, do what he wants, but using the fraternity to provide that pathway.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Excellent.
It'll be good for him.
Excellent.
I think he's at least with Lewis. I think like you, I want him to make his own path and do his own thing. But he's definitely learned what hard work does for you. He's also learned from me the friendships are continuous. He's seeing what it means to have friends outside of your neighborhood. He sees through the work that we have been doing, the friendships we have across the nation, and the networking, the trust that you have with your neighbor is something you can't do without. You've got to have it. You can't do on your own. And he's learned a lot about what it means to have people to support you, help you, respect you, but at the same time you have to respect them. And I mean, it's been very very telling and very strong. I mean, his values are really strong, and he really has learned to look and observe what's going on around him, and really make some very smart decisions, which I know he's picked that up through the fraternity. And it gets stronger every day when we talk. And he's always asking me about, what are you doing now? Oh, we're going to do this and that. And he starts asking how so-and-so. These are people he would never know had it not been for our connections. And he just hits it ground running. It's perfect.
Great.
So one thing I've learned with a lot of the young men in the fraternity is you get out of it what you put into it. And the one thing I noticed with Legacies, they all gravitate toward the leadership, and they become involved in their chapters. And with my sons, each one of them got involved as in leadership roles, EC officers, and the skills that they've learned and they built. So my younger son, Matthew, worked for Kappa Sigma for 4 years, served as ARM colony director for a bit. And we would laugh. When we'd come home for holidays, he would run through the contacts he had in his phone. And at a certain point, he had over 2,000 contacts in his phone. And the funny part was he could pick up any one of those numbers out of it, and that kid would recognize his voice and talk to him. So the contacts and the networking that he's made has made a huge impact. Well, now he's progressed and a few career changes. But his advancement with the company that he's working on, when they started talking to him and he started explaining his role in the leadership and the things he had done with the fraternity, he immediately shot to the top of the pack on the job candidates, bypassed some people, and it's really helped his career. So that's a part that a lot of the undergraduates need to understand is that the legacies are a little more trusting in us as fathers of saying, trust me, put the work into it, it's going to benefit you. But that's something that you really want all younger people to understand, that you get that out of it, and you want them to all have that full reward of eventually giving back to the things that the fraternity's given to them.
Great. My story is very similar. I mean, when I went to college 30 years ago-ish, didn't know anybody on the campus, was looking for something to take me to the next level. And that's what the fraternity gave for me. And I think it's the same thing that I'm seeing with my son Hudson is fraternity's given him a great platform to think about what he wants to do in his life, to meet a bunch of different people that he never would have crashed into before. And now they're all, a tight group. So, I don't think that happens naturally on campuses for students who don't join organizations like this. They just don't get that exposure with folks around them. They go into a little bubble, especially after COVID, So I feel very confident and this is kind of gets into my next question, recommending this to other parents to say, your son is going off to school. He might know some folks, but he probably won't, especially if he goes out of state or whatnot. And to kind of fall into a group whose only purpose is to support each other and to challenge each other in the right way, and to teach lessons of teamwork and reliability and accountability, and do it in a fun environment, in a way that rewards excellence and helps people stretch to become who they want to be next. And again, use the experience of the fraternity to give them confidence that they might not have had. You know, you're 18 years old, right out of high school. You need a group that has your back, and only then can you really stretch into who you want to be and try things and maybe fail and learn from that. We're in the building better brothers business, as you said, Brother Lynch. And for me personally, and I think for my son and for many undergraduates, is they're getting that experience from us, and our job is to perpetuate that and protect that and keep that going. So, I mentioned parents and who may have different thoughts about their sons joining a fraternity. And I think as us with kids who are going through it, and we now give back as volunteers, of course. But what would you say to parents who are asking, should my son join Kappa Sigma, and why? And what about all the stuff in the news of some fraternities who don't follow our rules, don't have high standards, don't live a values-based experience? What would you say to those parents?
I will say for me, I had no hesitation and no qualms about my son joining Kappa Sigma specifically. I know the values that we stand for. I know what we believe in. I know how he handles issues when they do occur. And I wasn't worried at all. And I would share that with other families. My son's roommate is actually his cousin, my nephew. And he was somebody else that I encouraged to seek this out, because it's not something that anybody should shy away from. This really is about brotherhood and about building better men. And so to me, it's a no-brainer. And it's not just based on my experience, but also seeing my son experience that currently as well.
Wonderful.
I think that, just like what Will was saying, another thing I really enjoy about this is why it's so important, because I know the leadership that we have in place right now, we approach the undergrads as our own sons. Okay? I mean, I really enjoy being able to influence in a good way how these undergraduates are going to become men down the road. And it's I treat them like my son. I really do, and I know they do as well. We talk to them. We do what we can to put them in the right direction. If they make a mistake, I promise you, if we know about it, we're going to try and fix it. And we talked, and I remember when I was a DGM, I would have chapters of problems. I told them, I said, call me at 3 o'clock in the morning if you need to. I don't care. I want to know about it. And periodically somebody calls and said, look, we have this problem. Good. We're going to take care of it. And we're going to learn from it. And it always works out well. It's things like that, the values, et cetera. The one thing I really do like, and it's me personally, and you really don't know until you've been there, but I love it when I could call my father my brother, or call my son my brother, okay? It's in a different light, but it really hits you deep and makes you understand how much you really do appreciate what we have. And in this day and age, that means a lot.
Yeah.
It means a lot. It really does.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you hit on something about, being there to help these young men. A lot of people, we know this, a lot of people come to college and they might have had a rough background. They might have had a rough family. They might not really had a family. Kappa Sigma might be their first true family. This is the case more and more. We see this. So we really do have a special role to play for especially those students. And, we keep dues low, lowest in the fraternal world, because we believe in giving opportunity to the largest group possible to provide students and young men from all socioeconomic backgrounds to be able to experience this brotherhood. And we give them mentorship so they can rise themselves up in their future and their career. So Lonnie, I think it's very true about the role we play, and looking at our undergraduates as family and as as part of a family we want to lift up. So thank you, Brother Griffiths.
Yeah. So my sons, the involvement with family and parents. A lot of the young men who pledged with my son were friends that he's had since he was elementary school, Catholic school. I grew up. So a lot of the parents, just as we're like we are, we're concerned about when the sons were going in. So at that point, I was serving after my older son had joined. I'd begun serving as a volunteer, and it was really common. I mean, parents would call me and we're discussing it. So I'm talking to the parents as much as the kids during rush weeks. And we started incorporating into our rush process a family day, either right before or after it, so that the parents can come and meet other parents and meet us as volunteers and get to know the members of the fraternity and see the values that we're teaching them. And even throughout their process, you know what I mean? I think it's very important when we're volunteers to have that open channel, because I've had, parents call me about their kids, schools, their grades, career paths, what's going on. We play an active role. And in that, because some of these young men, like Lionel was saying, I treat them like my own son, because I've known these young men since they were children along with mine. So when they became involved in the fraternity, I take a special interest. It's not just that these are some young men that have joined. These are my boys. These are my brothers. They're part of my family now. So we take care of them like that. And you kind of hit the nail on the head when you're talking about some of these guys come in and they don't have, maybe they've got a split home. I've had so many young men that'll sit there and they'll, when they graduate, they'll tell me, man, you've always been like a father to me, and I want you to know how much I appreciate that. And, that's an important role that we have to understand is it's a little bit more than a mentor. We serve as that other person that's seeking the best for them and where they're at. And one of the young men that we have, Braylon Cook, is one of those young men that I communicate with. We have daily conversations. He's graduated. He serves as a volunteer for Kappa Sigma. But it's one of those things where we kind of chuckle that, we're just trying to decide when we're going to start putting you on the Christmas cards. Because the relationship with our brothers and the families, that's how close it is.
Yeah. I want to ask you guys your opinion on something. We, every year, a dozen or so, probably more than that, go through rush and recruitment to join brothers, undergraduates whose fathers or uncles or whatnot are Kappa Sigs. And we would really encourage every chapter to offer a bid to those young men. And our message really is that it's bigger than just one time and one chapter for you to decide a guy. Whether you want to make sure he's a good guy, and most of these young men are, and give him a shot at joining the Kappa Sigma Brotherhood. And it pains us when a seemingly really good undergraduate is going through rush and talks about his family's legacy of Kappa Sigma, and for one reason or another wasn't offered a bid or whatnot. And that's so we really encourage chapters to lean into this and to give guys opportunities, especially when it's part of the greater family. So would you guys have any thoughts on that? Any advice to chapters in that scenario?
I certainly do. And so one thing that it's important for both our undergraduate brothers and for our alumni to remember is that we are stewards for Kappa Sigma. Kappa Sigma is older than anybody on earth, and it'll exist long past all of us are gone. And so our role is to steward our chapters for future generations. Now, part of that is a legacy may have some institutional knowledge or somebody they can call on, a lifeline that they can call just a phone call away. And it's also important to remember that Kappa Sigma is really a wonderful gift. It's a gift that we should be ready and excited to share, especially with a young man that's a legacy. And so just bearing those two things in mind, to me, it's a no-brainer. If somebody's a legacy, unless there are some giant red flags, they definitely should be invited into a chapter.
Well said. Very well said.
Everybody deserves a shot at the apple, and I mean that in a great way. Everybody has their bad day. Everybody needs a little bit of time to get to know somebody. And I think it's imperative that legacies, etc., even people who aren't legacies, they need to give it a shot. And sometimes you meet the best people in the world after a month or two trying to crack that egg and find out what really makes that person. and then all of a sudden you wonder, where's this guy been? He's perfect. So I encourage chapters and parents, don't always judge a book by the cover, especially when you're having to deal with personalities that are going to last a lifetime with you. Really give them a good hard look and really be fair to that individual. No one wants to say shoulda, woulda, coulda. I mean, if you had to do that, it's too late. And me personally, I know I've made friends I never thought would be some of my best friends. Okay, and it was because I gave it a little more time, or they came into the fraternity. I really didn't know what I was going to think about them. But hey, I'm not going to upset the apple cart, so to speak, because I don't know everything. And come to this day, some of them are my best friends. And everything happens for a reason. Give everybody that chance to do it. Let that be the reason. You may regret it if you don't.
Well said. Brothers?
Yeah, I would like to start by reminding our undergraduates, too, that the rush process is not a time to make final decisions. The purpose of rush is to give an opportunity, and the pledge process is to get to learn the person and just determine if that's a fit. So I would encourage specifically give Legacies an opportunity, but keep that open mind with all members that the purpose of the pledge process is to get to know that person. The other thing is a lot of these young men, when they come in as freshmen, man, they're a deer in the headlights. They're walking in, they're awkward, they don't know everybody, they're nervous. And I've seen young men, we had one in our chapter, young, skinny, awkward guy, and in 4 years this guy graduated with a perfect 4.0, blossomed, social. He's a core of our chapter. That wasn't the impression you got on the first day you walked in. So you have to give these things an opportunity to get there, and let it work itself out. Now, it's also very important, as Legacies, you're not your father, you're not your brother. Let everybody earn their path on their own merits and come into their own. And that's a really important part, I feel, of the process. Even when my sons were in as a volunteer, as AA, and when anything dealt with my sons, I would often have one of my AAAs or somebody else handle the matter so that he could, in fact, be his own man and be proud of his own accomplishments and his achievements without being overshadowed by anyone else.
Yeah, very good point. So what else would you like to get into on this topic? Any other aha moments from this conversation or anything else you want to share? And then I've got a question for each of you as we wrap up. But
I do want to echo along the lines of what we were just talking about. The model of Kappa Sigma is set up to be successful. Meeting somebody at one rush event when they haven't even started classes yet, you're not going to get a good barometer on what kind of brother that person can be. The way that Kappa Sigma is set up, we should give that person a bid. Champion Quest should be an invitation for all college-age men that are enrolled in university to be a part of Kappa Sigma. And then we use that pledge process. That is why it exists. You can't judge somebody based on one night over 1 week, but having 8 weeks to kind of make that determination, that's the point where you want to say, okay, maybe there's some issues here. We don't want to go down this path. But that's absolutely true and vitally important, not just for Legacies, but for everybody. We want to have those people as pledges. We want to see what they're truly made out of, and then we can make that determination before they're initiated.
Yeah, and I would say that, man, 9 times out of 10, a guy who comes in that you can't get a beat on yet, when given the pathway and the challenge to take his next step, in development as a young man, 9 times out of 10, folks pleasantly surprise you and grow into these outstanding leaders that you guys all said, you gave examples of. Sometimes they surprise you and they do fantastic work, and you never knew that they were capable of it. Maybe they didn't know they were capable of it, but they were just given an opportunity and had some peers around them that encouraged it. And next thing you know, they're off to the races doing awesome work. So it's great that we can contribute to that, and in many cases catalyze that in our organization for sure. So kind of to wrap up, I wanted to ask kind of back to your personal connection when you initiated your son or a relative, and what sort of has pleasantly surprised you as, from that experience, initiating him, or what he's got out of it that you never thought he would get? Anything come to mind that's just maybe a little more personal on seeing the impact on your family member and our new brother?
I would say I've been thinking about this a lot coming into the podcast. It's almost like watching your favorite movie with your best friend, and you're like kind of looking over. They're watching it for the first time. Like, oh, I hope he likes this part. Oh, this is my favorite. Oh, watch this. Did you catch that? Did you like that line? And so to me, we're still really early in this Kappa Sigma journey for my son Braden. But I anticipate great things for him, for the chapter. Just staying involved is going to be so good. And though he's in his second semester, there's a bright future ahead for him and for Beta Gamma for sure. And I look forward to watching it.
Very well said.
I know with Lewis, he's always somewhat of a quiet person. And I told him when he was in school and going through Kappa Sigma and he'd question me on this and that, I said, look, this all comes back to you tenfold. Keep doing what you're doing. You're going to see the benefits of this. And sure shooting, when it came time for looking for his first good job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I said, look, we're going to meet some people. I'm going to introduce you to some people. And he's asking me, well, what are they going to do? All right, trust me, it's going to work. And brothers from across the country would just come out at certain events and meet up with Lewis and say, hey, I know people who can help you with this. I know people who can help you with that. This is where you need to change things up a little bit. Just information overload. And he is where he is now because of Kappa Sigma. I mean, he had to get himself there, but he saw the benefits of what the fraternity could do for him. And, it makes me so happy that he's turned out the way he has. And Kappa Sigma is a big part of that.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for everything that Kappa Sigma's given to me. And I was thinking, when we joined the fraternity, we always hear the same story. It was the best 4 years of my life. I was blessed with an opportunity to be able to repeat that process 2 more times. That each time my sons came through, I got involved. And, that was also, I feel like I probably enjoyed their time in the fraternity more than my 4 years. And with that, also, that's a big part of me getting involved the way that I am as a volunteer and giving back, is seeing that impact that we can make and being able to be a part of that again. So I am truly grateful to both my sons for having joined Kappa Sigma, because it brought me back in to want to become more involved and keep going. And I'll often have the question with work a lot of times. We'll take off for the weekends and we'll go and they'll say, have another Kappa Sig thing? And I've kind of, because both of my sons are volunteers, I just start referring to it. I was like, no, it's a family weekend because we're all here at every one of them. So, it gives back. So, the whole legacy process has just been a blessing of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And my story echoes the same as yours. My takeaway moment, among others, was when my son got to see how instantly there's this group of men around him who are there for his success, and he's there for their success. And that doesn't come naturally to most people, and that's why this gift of Kappa Sigma Brotherhood is so impactful. Is that it's providing these young men at a really important part in their life to have this backing that's there for them, a peer group that challenges them, keeps them focused, hopefully has a lot of fun, does it responsibly. So, very grateful, just as you three are in this gift that we've been able to pass along to our sons and our family. Anything else for the good of the order, brothers?
I think that's a great part of it. It's comforting knowing, because like with all of us and what Lonnie's talking about, you have hundreds of your fraternity brothers looking out for your son, knowing that he's not alone in this world, that wherever he goes, there are Kappa Sigmas out there that are going to take care of him the same way that I would.
Yeah, great point.
And we always say, it's always a great day to be a Kappa Sigma.
Nice.
Always.
along the lines of what Brother Griffiths was just saying, Braden was lucky enough to have the ritualist come in and participate in his initiation
right.
along with me. And that was...
And what chapter is he from again? Just Kappa,
Yours.
Boise State. Just want to mention that.
Yes. Yeah.
Shout out to Jordan Valenti.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it was such an awesome moment, and it meant a lot to me because to me that's brotherhood. I would have known Jordan outside of the fraternity, of course, but getting to know him better and serving as a commissioner with him, and just kind of that feeling of, just like you said, this is somebody who's willing to take Braden under his wing, who's willing to make sure that this chapter is successful, that Braden is successful down the road, and that's just one small example.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of other brothers that would do that for my son as well.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, brothers, thank you for being here, for sharing your stories. We very much appreciate it. I want to give a special shout out to Josh Lee, who's the magic behind all of these here, our podcast. So we look forward to our next episode. Thanks for joining us, and AK to be.
Thank you.
Thank you, brothers.